Can you hear me all? Oh, yeah, you can totally hear me. Hello, how's it going so far? Everyone good? You're awake? Fired up? A little quiet? Okay, we're gonna bring it up a notch here. We have a double header for you today. We're going to be talking about both scaling your infrastructure, and we're also going to be talking about scaling your humans. We have two folks up here. I'm the first one. My name is Michael Lopp. I'm the VP of Engineering here at Slack, and I'll be followed up by the amazing Julia Grace, who is the head of Infrastructure Engineering. I am the VP of Engineering. Oh my gosh. I've been here about a year and 4 months and 12 days. And before this, I was at Pinterest for about 2 years. Before that, I was at Palantir for a couple of years, and then I was at Apple, who I hear is doing some interesting things today. I don't know, because I'm up here on stage. The reason I'm telling you my resume is because one of the things that I've noticed is that the challenges of growth are extreme. The challenges of scaling your team and your technology are incredibly expensive. And I want to talk about that. This is the framing for the next 20 minutes or so. Congratulations. You're growing. You're growing. That's awesome. You're 10, and then you're going to be 20. You're 100, and you're adding another 10 people. You've just inherited a new project. You've got all these new people showing up. There's some version of growing that you're doing right now. This is super hard. This is super expensive, and we want to talk about that. We're growing at Slack. We have a lot more users than we did a couple of years ago, and we also have a lot more employees as well. And some really interesting taxes show up during this rapid growth. Questions. It used to be really easy when it was 10 of you. We could just look around and be like, what person X knows about things Y? What person X owns thing Z? How do I find this person? These things that were easy are suddenly really, really complicated. And how do I communicate with that person if I can find them and I know what they want to own? Then there's these second order challenges that come on top of this that slow things down, make things political, make things sort of move like molasses. Who makes decisions? How do we actually make those decisions? And what happens when we disagree on a decision? Again, small, with people communicating well, high bandwidth, easy error correction, gets suddenly really, really complicated. This seems like a tough problem. The one that I worry about as an engineering manager, the one that I lose sleep over, is this idea that Sally had 2 days ago in the morning. It was a great idea. She came up with this thing about this feature just randomly, and this is a legit, amazing idea. How in the world do I create a team, a culture, a set of technologies that allow her idea to get to the right person, to get to the right set of people, to be discovered, to flourish, and to be actually operationalized? This is the one I worry about when we're growing a lot, is how are ideas, great ideas, being encouraged, getting out there? This seems like a tough problem. It seems like a lot of bright humans out there have probably been through this before, so there's probably prior art, right? So, to the internet. Let's go look and see out there, like, what are some other ideas around scaling and growth? Phil Knight of Nike says, play by the rules, but be ferocious. Lovely. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Edward Abbey, American author, advocate for the environment. Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. That's kind of a drag. It's a little bit better. James Cash Penney, founder of JCPenney, says, growth is never by mere chance. It is the result of forces working together. Okay, that's a little bit more actionable, a little less pithy, a little less tweety. It's people working together. We want to focus on that. This is the one that got me as I was thinking about talking about the challenges of scaling humans, was this quote from Charles and Ray Eames from years and years ago, and I'm going to read it. The problem our society faces is not so much a lack of scientific, technological, or sociological knowledge, it's the lack of ways of transmitting existing knowledge to the humans as they need it in forms they can readily grasp. Existing knowledge, things that already exist to the humans when they need it in real time in forms they can readily grasp. And this changed my thinking about how to advise all y'all about the challenges around scale. It's not a pithy quote. It's not a broad vision about what we're going to do around scale and these amazing vision and strategy. What if we just started bottoms up? What if we just said, we're going to do small little things. We're not going to do broad stroke strategy. We're going to do small little things. And to make this really crystal clear, I'm going to give you a very simple communication exercise. Because I want to talk about focusing on the ballooning costs of communication. This is a simple communication between Abby and I. I have an ask for Abby. I'm going to walk you through my process of writing her a message. Okay? You ready? You sitting down? Here we go. First off, what do I have to do? This is not in Slack. This is in some other tool. First off, I have to go and figure out, okay, it's Abby. She runs Jira, and she knows things about Jira. I have an ask for her, but I need to give her boss a heads up as well. And also, Cal and I have been working on this, so those three people belong in two, the two message. I've now been talking about this for 15 seconds. All I've done is figured out that Abby and other people need to know about this. We're not remotely done. I'm also now in the CC line. Now, the CC line is the CYA line to make sure everyone has situational awareness about what's going on. And you're going to go spend some time and think about, okay, who is everyone that has nothing actionable to do here, but they actually need to know about it? So we're going to put Stuart, Bob, April, Frank, Steve, and Alex. We're 35 seconds in, still haven't actually put the ask in. We'll keep going into the super douchebag version of addressing people, which is the BCC. BCC is, I want you to know about it, but I don't want any of you know that he knows. Does anyone have like a kind of uncomfortable feeling about this? This is where a lot of politics shows up. Why did he tell him, but not tell everyone else? We haven't even said the ask yet. I haven't even told you what we're doing, and we're 45 seconds in this hypothetical example. But there's a message. Hi, Abby. I'm so glad you're back. So happy you're back and refreshed. There is so much to do. There are some shady things going on inside of Jira, and I'd love your help digging in here. What I'm looking for is some analysis on triage times for HR components. I'd love to get a dashboard here. Can we meet about this next week? I'd love to understand how much work this represents. Thank you, Lopp. What was that, 2 minutes of our time talking about this message that I just sent? 2 minutes of my time doing that. How many people are on here? 11. What's the actual information on this artifact? What is the actual information on this artifact? It's actually only two things. Abby, shady things in Jira, analysis on triage times. That's it. I have been in email for decades and decades. I've been doing this for forever and ever. We've now talked about this for now 3 minutes. I've hit send, and it's going out to those 11 folks. And you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen is someone's going to respond. Steve's going to lose his mind because he's a Jira guy, and he's got the VP of engineering saying something shady going on in Jira, which is just a throwaway thing. I'm trying to frame something there. He's going to respond immediately. 4 other people that weren't even supposed to respond. There's going to be a 17-message thread. We've now wasted how many folks' times in terms of communication that was completely unnecessary? And here's the kicker. This is the one, as I designed this hypothetical exercise, that really kind of pisses me off. This isn't even the ask. I said, let's schedule a meeting next week to actually do the thing that we were talking about doing. This is deliberately built to be a little bit exasperating, but this is the thing. That we've been using these tools for so long and spending so much time building up sort of this tissue around how we get things done, a culture around getting things done. We're wasting a huge amount of time. I want you to think about, for whatever tools that you're using, what is the total cost of a single communication between 2 human beings in your organization, in your team, on your product team? What's the total cost? How long does it take for 2 people to actually communicate? The thing I want to land with you is that in rapid growth, you define the rules, the culture by which the humans communicate, debate, and decide all the time. You are writing this into the DNA of your team, of your product, of your company, and you're probably underestimating the total cost because you, like all of us, are in an incredible hurry to get things done. And it doesn't feel like it's that expensive when you spent 3 minutes writing a mail. During rapid growth, you're defining the communication culture, whether you like it or not. Show of hands. How many of you have to, when you're thinking of getting in touch with someone, have to figure out which tool to use to actually communicate with human beings, with different human beings? Like, there's multiple tools to communicate. Show of hands. Let me see them real quick. All right. You're all Slack users, too. Interesting. So, like, most of the folks in here, there's another tax on top of this, which is whatever that tool is, that one tool, you probably have multiple versions of this tool, and you have to figure that out piece to. That's another piece of friction that's going on. Multiple communication mediums, making what should be really easy, which should be super fast, really, really expensive. I have some good news. I know of this product, and it's Slack. What I want you to think about, is 3 bottom-up optimizations for how your team is communicating, because I believe getting this done quickly is going to allow you to scale faster. Flatness, discoverability, efficiency. Flatness. This is a made-up Lopp thing, which is, what is the average perceived distance between 2 human beings? How quickly can one person find and talk to any other person in your organization? Are they worried about org structure? Are they worried about protocol? What is that actual perceived distance? Discoverability. How long does it take a human being to find a credible artifact? How much time of your day are you spending going like, I know I wrote that career path like 3 months ago. Where did I put it again? Was it in Dropbox? Did I mail it to Julia? What's going on here? How quickly can people find the things? And then finally, efficiency. How is the tool encouraging economy of motion in your communication? This is a leadership Slack that I run because I can't take pictures of real Slack. And this is a good example of, I would say, very good flat organization. Now, it's a community team. It's not the business here. But what we have here is we have this channel where people are talking about compensation. 398 people are talking about compensation. That is amazing. All these folks, what are the chances that you could go into this channel and say, hey, I was wondering about this or this sort of thing, that you're going to get a credible, informed response really, really quickly? The thing you want to see, what decreases that sense of flatness, is making sure all of the different human beings are there, that your tribe is all represented, that you get as many folks into one tool as possible. They've got to be there in order to be part of the communication. Sticking with the leadership Slack. Perhaps my favorite feature of using Slack is that Slack has memory. Back to our hypothetical endless email thread. Maybe there's a great signal in there, but the chances are there's only 11 people who actually have that signal because it's sitting inside of their inbox. We default to public in our communications at Slack, meaning that everything is shared. There's always a good reason to have private communications. But what that means from a discoverability perspective as a VP of engineering is any customer that I want to understand what's going on, I can jump in and understand. Any feature, I want to see what the status is, I can jump in and understand. That friction being reduced to find things is amazing. And of course, all the conversations, everything that's public, all of the artifacts are there. That career path, there's multiple versions of the career path document. People have riffed on it. They've done other things with it, and I can just easily search it. How long does it take you to find that credible artifact? Think about that. Perhaps my favorite feature. It's so simple, you never see it. You're probably looking at it right now. A little box at the bottom. A little box, where you type, right? Super simple. How big is it? It's a single line. Now, you can go in there and write a very long thing in there, but what I like about this, and I don't know whether this was deliberate or not, but I love it, is it encourages keeping it short, keeping it terse, being efficient. Now, there's big, long messages inside of there, but this is the thing about Slack that I really love, is that it's sitting there like, please, if you can do it in one line, we would all be thankful. because you're underestimating the network effects, the total cost of this communication going out to all these different folks. Your tools define your communication culture. You want them to be fast, efficient, you want them to be easy to use. Your tools define your communication culture. Your communication culture defines how well you're scaling. The question is, and I know the answer to this, the question is, how do you transform, in whatever tool you choose to use, how do you transform this large, historic way of communicating with groups of people to this? How do you keep it clean? This is exactly the same message. And I would argue, I put it in the right channel, everyone who needs to know about it will understand what's going on. The ask goes directly to the person who needs it, and there's also history on it. It's a very simple thing, but this is one of the things that I think is transformative about Slack, is it's asking us to update our priors on how we're communicating, because we've been doing it the same way for forever. The reason that Slack resonates from the base, from the builders, is we love that sense that comes with instantly feeling more efficient. Everyone's here. My tribe is all here. I can find the things. There's a history there. And people are respecting each other's time by actually having brief, terse communications. Your communication culture will help, how you define your communication culture will influence how you scale. All right, now we're going to get out of the human side of the equation and move over to the technology side. I'd like to bring Julia Grace up here, who's going to talk about the other side of the equation. Thank you. Break a leg.
Good morning. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Lopp. Tough act to follow. He has to leave for a meeting, so now that my boss is gone, I can tell you even more exciting things. All right, let's talk about scaling infrastructure. So this is where our engineering org is today. We have over 300 people, several different sub-orgs, 3 locations in North America. But this is the story of how we got there. All of us today together, we're going to travel back in time. Slack came out of beta on February 12th, 2014, which was a little over 3.5 years ago. Before that, our founders and early team members were working hard for over a year to build the product that would then be released as Slack. Now, originally, Slack was designed for small and medium businesses. How many of you have heard of Dunbars Number? Okay, a few hands in the audience. So Robin Dunbar was a professor who in the 1990s was studying Neolithic farming villages. And in those villages, he realized that the maximum number of relationships that humans can keep in their heads is around 150. So Slack was designed for hundreds of people where you deeply care and want to know about all of those people. You're probably talking to every single person within your workspace or your team. You want to know about all the channels. There's a lot going on. Now, that decision then impacted the technology decisions that we made. The client, the Slack client that you use on desktop, that you use on iOS, Android, other platforms, those clients are historically very fat, meaning they knew the whole state of the world. And this decision made clients incredibly powerful because they knew everything that was going on. One of the things you could then do with a really fat client is you could sort by who was online, even in a channel that had over 100 people. The client knew all about the world. Now, how did we do this? Let's talk a little about our infrastructure. Now, we're gonna fast forward to 2015. 2015 is when I joined Slack almost 2 years ago. We had 2 engineering teams in the beginning. I see this a lot in many early-stage startups. In the beginning, there's product engineering, and product engineering is to support the building out of features. There were so many features and so many things we wanted to build. We also worked very closely alongside an operations team that helped us with 24-hour support around the globe. Most of the web application of Slack is PHP. We had a few disparate Java services in the back end. But something interesting, a decision that we made, as Lopp had talked about, cool tools define culture. We didn't use any frameworks in those early days. No PHP, no JavaScript, no Java frameworks at all. And part of that reason is we wanted to have deep understanding and deep knowledge of how to operate our tools and our technology. We take performance and reliability really seriously. As you heard in the keynote, there are 43 of the top Fortune 100 companies use Slack. And if Slack goes down, people can't do work. And if people can't do work, they're not exactly happy campers. So we knew we needed to operate at scale, but we wanted to ensure we could do it fast, effective. We wanted to ensure we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We're a scaled out LAMP org, Linux, Apache, PHP, MySQL. And we made the decision to shard or partition data, as you will, around every team or workspace. And this made it really clear around where do I fetch data? Well, of course, it's on a specific shard for that team. And this is a decision that, again, was very powerful in the early days, and then later on, we made different decisions about how we wanted to operate things. I'll get into that in a second. Dramatic pause. Let's talk a little bit about our APIs. Our APIs also reflected these product decisions. How many of you are developers on the Slack platform or have built on top of Slack? Awesome. OK, I see a few hands there, including some employees. That's super awesome. So when you build on our platform, one of the first API calls that you've historically made is called RTM Start. Stands for Real-Time Messaging Start. That opens up a WebSocket, a long-lived connection with our servers. And once you open up that connection, you get a lot of data. Because remember, this is the fire hose. The clients wanted to know a lot about how the world operated. All the users, the status changes, the new channels, the archive channels, the messages. So many exciting things are going on. This is the image of the whole team. It eventually becomes consistent over that socket connection. This was also a powerful decision for third-party developers. Developers building on top of Slack could build really rich, elegant, powerful integrations and applications on top of the platform because we expose so much data to them. This is an oversimplified diagram of our infrastructure, and you all are hopefully the smiling faces, the clients using our APIs, and the RTM API, that connection from the orange message server box to the smiling face, that's that super long-lived connection. That's that WebSocket connection. We also have some HTTP REST APIs. We're building more and more of those. But traditionally, if you wanted to build on Slack, we are the largest consumer of our APIs. You would open that long-lived connection. Now, before 2015, we had gone through a period of very rapid growth, but that rapid growth continues. And when I look at this diagram, the first thing I think, and this is our daily active user growth diagram that Lopp had shown in the previous part of the talk, I think, well, you build very different systems in the green part than you do in the gray part. One of the interesting side effects of this rapid growth is that things start to break in strange, unusual, and highly unpredictable ways. I see some of you nodding. You probably have felt this as your companies have scaled. If I were to ask any of you who are engineers, developers, builders in the audience, what is the single point of failure in your system? What's the thing you're most worried about? You would probably have a quick answer. You probably know. You're probably thinking about it right now. But what are all the things that break that you don't think about, that don't keep you up at night? Those are some of the scariest things. So we were entering this phase where one of the beautiful consequences of rapid growth is, again, developers start building on your platform, and they're building things you never could have imagined, and they're using the product in ways you never could have thought, and that's putting strain on your system in ways that, again, you never thought could happen. We decided when we started to see some of these cracks in the foundation that it was time to scale. Some of the original technologies that were built for Glitch, which was the game that then Slack became out of, Sergey, one of our co-founders, he built our message server, which was that orange blob on the diagram. And some of those original technologies to broadcast player movements in Glitch, well, that's a pretty similar type of infrastructure needed to broadcast messages. And so we had a lot of those same infrastructural pieces. Now, they had grown and evolved, of course. But one of the things that we started to notice is this huge advantage in the early days to have the fat clients. And the fat clients helped us get product market fit. Again, they knew about the whole world. This actually became a big challenge for us. If you have a team of 150 people, there's a lot going on your team, hopefully. But imagine a team of 100,000 people. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of data you need to query. That's a lot of data you need to transmit. That's a lot of data that you need to then send to the browser. The browser has to decompress, inflate into objects. It's a lot of data. We also started seeing something that we call the thundering herd. So as I had mentioned before, we stored all of the information for every workspace or team on a shard. And then 8 a.m. Monday morning comes around, and everyone logs onto Slack, and we see this huge influx of traffic. And what once was this advantage, storing the data close, became a big challenge when a big team could take down a shard. So it became clear that we needed to rethink how we were going to store the data. Along this same time, when we're starting to see this really rapid daily active user growth, the engineering team itself is growing really rapidly. From the time when I joined in October to it's been nearly 2 years, we've tripled in size. So when I look at that employee growth chart, again, that Lopp had shown, you build very different things in the green area. You have different processes, you have different structure, you have different type of organization than you need in the gray area. We realized that what got us here, those critical, key, great decisions of the early days, we needed to rethink a lot of those decisions as we go to the next phase. In other words, what got us here won't get us there. So what do we do? So first and foremost, we defined our goals. What are the things that we care most about as we enter this new phase of growth? And here's one of the takeaways that I would offer in this section of the talk is if you're at a company where you're at this inflection point, maybe at scale, maybe you've hit product market fit, maybe the technologies that you chose years ago are not yielding the same benefits as they were, it's time to figure out what is the plan for the future. And a huge shout out to Johnny Rogers, one of our original engineers, Mark, who's in the audience, Mark Christian, and our whole team around coming up with these 3 tenets. Slack should be very fast to boot, it should be very performant, and it should be instrumented from performance. Again, in the early days, when you're really focused on product market fit, you want to be performant, absolutely, but you have very different challenges with very large teams than you do with really small teams, at least that we experienced. Next up, we thought about our principles, and our principles really derived from deeply understanding our tool chain that I had talked about earlier. When things break in super weird ways, there are always a lot of ideas as to what is going wrong. And so there were many times when we really needed to hone down on one hypothesis instead of everyone trying to fix things in different ways. And then we would try to prove out that hypothesis with prototypes. When things are on fire in your company, let's say, for example, it's performance. Everyone will immediately think that every piece of engineering effort is being put towards that fire. And that may be the case, but more often than not, sometimes you're rebuilding things to achieve that same baseline, for example, of performance. But in the end, you're building something that's going to be much more scalable. It might be built on more modern technologies. It might be more modern and more modular. Finally, how you measure success is often really critical as well. If something is on fire, if it's breaking in weird ways, you're going to feel this super intense pressure to just fix it, just make sure it gets done. But at the same time, you need to make sure you're fixing the right things. You need to make sure you'll understand when you've been successful. So about a year ago, we decided to form an infrastructure team. As I had mentioned earlier, we didn't have infrastructure, and we had a lot of very, very talented engineers throughout our organization that were doing infrastructure-type work, but they were in product engineering, and one of the things that happens when you have infrastructure work in product engineering is at times there are really big features that we need to launch, and sometimes those take priority to the infrastructure investments. So we decided to make a big investment and create the infrastructure team. We brought everyone together, and we made it top priority to start building out and rethinking the future of our infrastructure. As I hinted to earlier, we didn't use any frameworks in those early days. We wanted complete control. We wanted to understand how to operate all of our technologies. But a lot of things have changed in the technology landscape in the past 5 years since initial development happened on Slack. I'm going to talk through some of the technology changes that we made in the coming slides. And it's going to be really easy to say, oh, that seems so simple. That seems so straightforward. But remember, we're driving a car down a highway at 100 miles an hour. The car can't stop, and we're replacing the engine. It's exciting, but it's also kind of terrifying. And so all of the things I will talk about, we've made big investments. They've been very difficult, but we've been very excited about the returns that we've seen. All right. First, let's talk about front-end infrastructure. As I mentioned earlier in the talk, everything was native raw JavaScript that we were writing. In the time that Slack has matured, React has gained not only popularity, but it has become a mature enough technology for us to begin using it. So Mark Christian, who's in the audience, he leads one of our teams. He'd love to talk more with you about these decisions and the type of work that we've done here. But remember, if you're driving the car and you're replacing the engine, you need a lot of process of understanding on how this engine is going to be built. And so we couldn't just wake up one morning and say, from now on, thou shalt use React. We needed to figure out, how are we going to build it? How are we going to build it with our existing JavaScript? How are we going to ensure that we implement it in a certain way? How will we have reference implementations? We have nearly 40 and growing front-end engineers at Slack. How are they going to know how we use React at Slack? This took many, many months of getting our house in order, so to speak, so we could make this change. So if you're using Slack right now, you might be, hopefully, on your laptops. Some of the components that you're using, components meaning there's a sidebar that might show everyone in the channel if you open it up. On the other side, you've got your list of channels. Some of those components are in React now, but some of them are still in legacy native JavaScript. We haven't converted them over yet. Back-end infrastructure. So Keith Adams, our chief architect, he came over from Facebook a little over a year ago. He'd done a lot of work on HHVM. HHVM is a virtual machine for PHP and the HackLang. He helped us and was a great catalyst throughout all of engineering of getting us on HHVM, on this new virtual machine. Now, we did this predominantly for performance reasons, but it is easy to think, well, we'll just change the virtual machine. We'll do some testing, but how hard could it be? Well, let me tell you. We run a lot of different types of instances on Slack. And this isn't just production. This isn't just dev. This isn't just staging. We've got boxes that run data pipelines. We've got boxes that run special scripts. We've got instances everywhere. And they all needed to be running the same virtual machine. And so the long tail of doing this conversion took us some time. We're also in the middle of transitioning to HackLang. We're using a new language, or rather the language that came out of Facebook alongside HHVM. And this gives us much more modern affordances, but this is a marathon and not a sprint. We're very pragmatic. We didn't flip the switch and suddenly everything was Hack. We're doing it piece by piece, slowly. And again, a lot of that is to ensure we mitigate any risks that we're introducing. Next up, we're using Vitess. Vitess is a horizontal scaling technology that came out of YouTube. Mike Demmer has been leading the charge along with a really great team. He's also here. He would love to talk with you. I see him smiling in the back. Changing how you shard data at very large scale is a very big deal. We've done several experiments on data that we feel is, less complicated to ensure we could operate this technology, debug it, fix it in production. And this has been a very big effort. We're still in the middle of this, because remember, the car never stops. Finally, on this section, I've talked a little bit about new technologies that we've introduced into our infrastructure. But sometimes you've got a problem, and it's a problem unique to yourself, and there aren't technologies that solve it for you. And so we entered this era of having to invent new technologies to solve our problems. So Cyrus Ketrick in the back, he had this fantastic idea of building out a distributed application level cache. And the thought there is that we've got customers all over the world. As you saw in the keynote, there are people everywhere in the world, Japan, South America, Europe, using Slack. The population that is using Slack internationally is only growing. Most messages are sent from outside the US. We needed to ensure we could be fast, we could be performant at scale for anywhere in the world. Going back to our goals, Slack should be performant for any size team anywhere in the world. So we started building out this caching layer and distributing it across the world. And the thought there is Slack will be much faster to boot if the data is closer to the users and kept in cache. We've also started putting our fat client on a diet and transitioning to a publish-subscribe model where instead of sending all of the fire hose, we start to send only the data the clients actually care about. A decision in retrospect, which makes a lot of sense, but in the early days, sending everything was just so much easier. So this is that diagram that I mentioned earlier. I referred to it. It's simplified. But in this new world, we've started adding additional pieces, additional boxes in our infrastructure to take load off of our clients so we can do data processing, data fetching, data caching outside of the clients, so that the clients can only have the data they need, they can be fast, they can boot seamlessly. In summary, because I am in between you and lunch, as you're scaling up your companies, here are the suggestions that I would say. Figure out what are the problems you're trying to solve, and figure out how are you going to solve those problems. Once you make a decision, you need to invest. You need to make sure that you build the team. Whoa. That was an exciting near ending. You invest in your technology, but you need to keep iterating. Things move fast. We are growing fast. I'm sure you are growing fast. Teams are growing quickly. People are using technologies in very different ways. We have this new way of working. And so always iterate. Always ensure that the problems that you have are still the top of mind problems. Those are still the things you want to tackle and that you want to solve. In conclusion, the road to success is always under construction. There's never going to be a perfect answer. There's never going to be the path you need to choose. But it is only what is best for your company, for your customers, for your engineering team right now. That brings us to the end. I heard lunch was pretty delicious. So just to recap, here are some stats about our company, about all the things that we've done. Thank you all so much for coming today. If you have questions, I'm excited to answer them. We have a lot of great people from the infrastructure team here, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.